have been growing dahlias here in my small central Indiana garden for the last few years, for the last 4 or 5 years. And every year I learn something about them, what they like, what they don't like. And this year, this is the first year that I decided to sell them at my roadside stand. Let me tell you, that's a whole different story. From the moment that I saw them a few years ago, I fell in love with dahlias. If you like dahlias, you know what I'm talking about. They come in different colors, shapes, sizes. I have been using them in my raised beds. I have been mixing them with vegetables, with my tomatoes, with my peppers. I also use them in containers in my front yard. I use them kind of everywhere. If I can find a place where to put a tuber, I will be putting dahlias in there. I really do enjoy them. But they definitely require a lot of work. I mean, dahlias are one of those flowers that are just high maintenance. They like a lot of fertilizer, they like plenty of water, they need to be weeded. They don't like other plants competing with them. They're definitely one of those flowers that you learn to love, if you know what I mean. They're not perennial in our zone. Here in central Indiana, zone 6, they are not perennial. They will not come back after the winter. So if I want to repeat the same tubers, the same dahlias that I have to dig up the tubers so they don't rot in the ground or in the containers where I have them. And well, that's a lot of work, digging the tubers, preparing them for storage. The tricky part, at least for me here where I live, is that I don't have the space, I don't have the conditions through the winter for the tubers to make it until the next spring. They like a really cold, not freezing, a really cold space. And I don't have that. I cannot provide that for them. So for the last few years, I have been trying to play with techniques, with ways of making it work. And I have been successful at some, and I have definitely failed at many. My sister-in-law has a nice size basement, and I am hoping that she's going to let me use it this year to store some of these dahlia tubers. But tell me, which is your favorite way to store them? Do you use wrapping? Do you use wood chips, vermiculite? Do you put them in your unheated garage? Do you borrow somebody else's space? Let me know. As I mentioned, I have been growing dahlias for the last few years, and I have been mixing them here and there, but probably the most amount of dahlias that I had in 1 year were like about the 20 mark, 20, 24, 25. And I thought that was a lot. Well, I just did the math. I just went to the few areas where I have dahlias growing right now, and I have a total of 92. That's a lot of dahlias. So this year, when I decided that I was going to be selling plenty of dahlias, I knew that I had to change the way that I grew them. I wasn't going to be able to just pop them here and there in between my tomatoes or in between other shrubs or perennials I have growing. I knew that they needed a specific space, a way of supporting them, and all of that has been really fun this year. It's definitely a new way for me to grow things, and it has been a nice learning experience so far. Trying to figure out the spacing alone has been one of the trickiest part. I believe that the ones that I have in my main raised beds are about 12 inches apart, and that's really close. But also, just like the way that you will do your tomatoes, I have been making sure that I trim the bottom leaves, that I cut plenty when I am cutting for cut flowers. So that has been working really well, at least in my opinion. Another new thing that I'm doing for them this year is that I decided to use the netting for their support. It's basically a panel or a layer of netting. At the beginning of the year, I show you the one that I'm using, or the one that I thought was going to be using for a while, which is the jute netting, and they have 6-inch openings. The plants are supposed to go through them as they grow. It's supposed to be a really nice way to keep the plants straight up. Well, I'll tell you how I feel about that here in a minute. But cleaning the plants to make sure that I don't get powdery mildew or that they don't get infested by things, it has been also a really good thing. So the key this year for my dahlias has been production. I really just need the plants to produce the flowers, to keep on going. And because of that, I really have to keep up on the watering, the fertilizing, and the weeding. And if you have been following me around for the last few years here in the things that I do in my garden, you know that I am not the biggest routine follower. I definitely don't have a day when I weed, when I water, when I fertilize. that changed a little, at least for my dahlias. Every week I make sure they have plenty of water. I'm almost here every day trying to make sure that the spent blooms are out of the plant so that they just concentrate on making new, fresher blooms. I have been fertilizing a lot. Actually, I probably already fertilized 4 or 5 times these dahlias for the whole season, and at least for me as a backyard gardener, that's a lot. And I would love to tell you that this year has been nice and smooth as far as growing the dahlias for production, but I definitely have had plenty of challenges. One of them being the one that I have absolutely zero control is Mother Nature. The heat here in central Indiana arrived early and arrived strong. We had several weeks in a row with temperatures in the mid 90s. For us, that is definitely really, really hot. I mean, my tomatoes were stuck and not producing. I had green tomatoes for the longest time. Things were struggling. A few of my annuals were definitely just gone in that period of time. And the dahlias were no exception. The dahlias were definitely struggling. I don't think that they were able to produce as much flowers or to be the best they could be, but I was here watering and fertilizing. Definitely on days that I knew that was going to be reaching close to the hundreds, I was here giving them extra drinks because that's really all that I could do. And yes, I could have done a little bit more in providing shade, some sort of shade cloth, but I was really not going to do all of that. It's just too big of a space for me to do shade cloth. Another thing that showed up early as well were the bugs. My goodness, I don't think that I have ever seen that many earwigs in one spot eating everything around them. Early enough, I found out that they really love to hang out in between the petals of the dahlias. They were here and they were everywhere. I treat them with a couple of homemade remedies. I mix a one amount of soy sauce with one amount of oil, and I put traps, really shallow containers around the ground. And the first week I trapped like hundreds of those things, if not thousands. I mean, these were everywhere. I also spray some Slago Plus, and in retrospect, for next year, I am going to be treating with Slago Plus early in the year. As soon as I put the plants in the ground, I am going to be adding those things just to prevent, because if I wait until I see them here, then it's probably already too late to start treating the blooms that are already there. But I don't see them now. I think that they're gone, thankfully, knocking on wood. But the earwigs were definitely one of the biggest struggles for my dahlias. Another struggle was the failure of the support that I started to use early in the spring. I really wanted to make this netting, this ute netting especially, I really wanted to make it work. And I found out after a little bit, especially after a few times when we had rain, that the ute netting, it stretches after it gets wet, which is, I guess, not a huge problem. I can always come here and tie this a little bit better after it rains. But the main thing is that if the plants are a little too strong, like dahlias, they break. And I have several spots in these beds where I have the dahlias where I have broken spots, and the plants just go through them, because we had really hard winds. We had a couple of times where we had storms that really just pushed the plants to be really heavy, and the netting didn't work. Now I also do have Horonova, which is the plastic netting, which is super strong. I have that at the community garden with my flowers. That type of netting does not stretch, it's plastic, and I mean, it's super strong. Definitely next year I'm going to completely go with the Horonova, with the plastic stuff, and I am going to do my best to try to keep it and use it year after year. But this stuff, I really wanted to. Like I said, I really wanted to love it, but it's just not working out. Maybe for things that are not as strong as dahlias, maybe that would be great. It's just not working for me this year. Another thing that I am finding out that is also hard, and this is just a personal struggle, is that I have to make sure that the plants keep on producing. And that means that if a dahlia is past the point of being able to work for a cut flower, then it needs to go. It needs to be out of the plant. So pruning this or cutting the blooms before they're even done has been hard. And I have, like I said, I have been doing my best, but I am definitely just kind of leaving some that are just super gorgeous. I mean, they're all gorgeous, but I have been leaving some here for the bees. And also I do want to save some seeds from these blooms for next year. If you want to make sure the plants keep on producing, you just gotta keep on cutting the blooms. If they're done past their point, you just gotta let them go. And like I say, that's more of a personal struggle, but it's hard. It's hard to see these gorgeous, gorgeous dahlias just blooming and knowing that you cannot cut them for a bouquet because they're already past their point, and it's just hard. All of the 92 dahlias that I have growing here for production for my bouquets were chosen because, one, I really like them. I know that the blooms are amazing, and I do have a lot of new plants, a lot of new varieties that, I mean, they're just amazing. The bloom is really what attracted me to grow them here. But not all dahlias are created equal, and one of the struggles that I'm finding this year with them is that while the blooms are amazing in some of those plants, the stems are really super weak. And when it comes to bouquet, you definitely want something that is nice and strong, that is going to hold well, at least in the bouquet, with everything else, with all of the rest of the blooms. And some of these dahlias are not making the cut. This right here, look at this gorgeous. This is Valley Tawny. That is a beautiful, beautiful bloom. I just love that center. It is gorgeous. But the stem, look at that. So thin. Now it could be that they just needed more fertilizer. It could be that they needed more space to grow stronger. And I will these guys maybe one more chance in containers, maybe another spot where I am not going to be cutting from these, because these are gorgeous. I mean, look at that. These are beautiful. I will probably do my research on other people that are growing this exact variety and see how the stems are doing for them, because it may just be something that I am doing wrong here, and that the plants are not pushing, you know, the stems the way that they're supposed to be. But things like that is definitely one of the struggles. Some of you are wondering why I have these little pots on top of the post. It's so that I just don't scratch my face. There we go. So growing dahlias for selling, it's a completely different thing than just, you know, growing them for being in your garden. While some of the things like supporting them, fertilizing them, and just taking care of them may be the same, growing them in big numbers, it's slightly different. And I am really loving everything that is happening with the roadside thing, with growing a lot of dahlias. But I am definitely going to do a couple of things different for next year. One is definitely going to be the support. I'm just going to go full on Horonova, and I may actually have to do a couple of layers of Horonova. We'll see. I'll decide then. But also I'm going to have to let go of some varieties that just are not producing that well for me. And again, we had a lot of struggles this year for growing the dahlias. The heat, the bugs, it didn't really help the plants to be the best that they could be. So I'm going to have to decide which ones I'm going to let go. But also I'm going to purchase a lot more tubers, because I don't have enough of the dark color dahlias. Even though I have a couple of plants, it's not enough for making, you know, 6-8 bouquets every week. So definitely something I'm gonna have to consider for next year. I don't have a lot of space, so I'm going to have to decide what I am going to be growing less of so that I can grow more tubers.